The message came without warning. It wasn't a loud explosion or a dramatic event, but a quiet signal from the stars that changed everything. On an ordinary Tuesday morning, deep within the sprawling complex of NASA's headquarters in Houston, Dr. Emily Carter stared at her computer screen, her heart pounding. She had spent years searching for signs of life beyond Earth, but now that it was here, she felt unprepared. The transmission was simple, repeating over and over, "We are coming." 10 years. At first, no one believed her. Her colleagues thought it might be a prank or a glitch in the system. But as the data poured in, undeniable proof emerged. The signal came from a distant star system, and whoever sent it was already on their way. Within hours, the news spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond. News outlets interrupted regular programming with urgent updates. By nightfall, the entire world knew. In his remote cabin, nestled in the mountains of Montana, Jake Miller watched the announcement on an old television set. He leaned forward, gripping the arms of his chair, his weathered face unreadable. For years, Jake had lived off the grid, convinced that humanity was heading toward disaster. Whether it was climate change, nuclear war, or something else entirely, he always said, "The end will come, and when it does, we won't be ready." Now, staring at the screen, he realized he might have been right all along. Jake wasn't alone in feeling uneasy. Across the globe, people reacted in different ways. Some panicked, rushing to stockpile food and supplies. Others dismissed the message as a hoax, refusing to believe aliens were real. In New York City, Sarah Collins sat on her couch, holding her 6-year-old daughter, Lily, close. "What does this mean, Mommy?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. Sarah didn't know how to answer. All she could think about was keeping her little girl safe. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., President Laura Bennett called an emergency meeting with her advisors. The room buzzed with tension as experts debated what to do next. Was this a threat? An opportunity? No one could say for sure. One thing was certain. Humanity had 10 years to prepare, for better or worse. Dr. Carter found herself at the center of the chaos. As one of the few people who understood the science behind the signal, she was thrust into the spotlight. Reporters hounded her for interviews, and government officials demanded answers. Exhausted but determined, Emily tried to explain the situation calmly. "This isn't just about us," she told them. "It's about our future. We need to work together if we're going to survive." But working together was easier said than done. Nations argued over resources and strategies. Some wanted to build weapons, while others pushed for diplomacy. Conspiracy theories ran rampant online, fueling fear and mistrust. Jake saw it all unfold from his cabin, shaking his head. "They'll tear each other apart before the aliens even get here," he muttered to himself. Despite the uncertainty, small acts of hope began to emerge. Neighbors checked on one another. Volunteers organized community meetings to discuss plans. Even Jake, who usually kept to himself, started paying closer attention to the news. Deep down, he knew this wasn't just someone else's problem. It was everyone's. As the days turned into weeks, the initial shock gave way to action. Governments formed alliances, scientists worked around the clock, and ordinary people did what they could to prepare. The countdown had begun, and though no one knew what the future held, one thing was clear: humanity had 10 years to get ready, and every second counted. The world was changing fast. In the months following the alien message, leaders from every corner of the globe gathered in Geneva for an emergency summit. The United Nations building buzzed with activity as diplomats, scientists, and military officials debated how to prepare for the unknown. President Laura Bennett stood at the front of the room, her voice firm but calm. "We don't know if they're coming as friends or enemies," she said, "but we do know one thing: we can't face this alone." After weeks of tense negotiations, a historic agreement was reached. The Global Defense Initiative, or GDI, was formed. Its mission was clear: unite humanity's resources to defend Earth. Money, technology, and manpower would be shared among nations. It wasn't perfect. Some countries still grumbled about fairness, but it was a start. Dr. Emily Carter became one of the key figures in the GDI scientific division. Alongside her was Dr. Alan Brooks, a quiet man with a sharp mind. Together, they led teams working on cutting-edge projects. They designed new weapons, built satellites to monitor the skies, and studied ways to protect cities. Late nights in the lab were common, but Emily didn't mind. She felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known before. Still, the pressure weighed heavily on her. Every decision mattered, and mistakes could cost lives. Far from the high-tech labs, Jake Miller found himself drawn into the preparations too. A local community group organized training sessions for civilians, teaching survival skills and basic self-defense. At first, Jake resisted. He didn't trust governments or organizations telling people what to do. But when Sarah Collins showed up with her daughter, Lily, something shifted. Sarah was determined to learn how to protect her family, and Jake admired her courage. Slowly, he began attending the sessions, offering advice and sharing his knowledge. The two grew closer over time. Sarah had a way of staying hopeful even when things seemed bleak. "We'll get through this," she often said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Jake envied her optimism. For him, hope was harder to hold on to. But seeing Lily laugh and play, oblivious to the looming threat, reminded him why they were fighting so hard. Not everyone supported the GDI's efforts. In some parts of the world, resistance groups sprang up, claiming the initiative was a power grab. Others simply refused to believe the aliens posed any real danger. Protests erupted in cities, and tensions simmered just below the surface. One night, while watching the news, Jake saw footage of a riot in Paris. People shouted and clashed with police, holding signs that read, "No to global control." Shaking his head, he turned off the TV. "They're wasting time," he muttered. Despite the challenges, progress was made. Massive orbital platforms armed with lasers were launched into space. Underground shelters capable of housing millions were dug deep beneath cities. Factories churned out supplies, and schools taught children emergency drills. Humanity was adapting, step by step. One breakthrough came unexpectedly. While analyzing data from the original signal, Emily's team discovered faint traces of alien technology embedded in meteor fragments that had landed on Earth decades ago. These tiny clues gave them insights into the aliens' possible weaknesses. Excited, Emily called Alan into the lab late one night. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a glowing diagram on her screen. "If we can replicate their energy systems, we might stand a chance." Alan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's risky, but worth trying," he replied. Together, they worked tirelessly, fueled by coffee and determination. As the second year of the countdown began, the world looked very different. Cities bristled with defenses, and communities banded together like never before. Yet, uncertainty lingered in the air. Were they ready? Could they truly defend themselves against an enemy they didn't understand? No one had all the answers, but one thing was certain. Humanity was doing everything it could to survive. Each day brought new challenges and new reasons to keep going. Tensions were rising. As the third year of the countdown began, cracks started to show in humanity's fragile unity. Not everyone agreed with the Global Defense Initiative's approach. Some believed the focus on weapons and defense was a waste of time, while others thought the aliens might not even be hostile. Debates turned into arguments, and arguments sometimes led to violence. In Arizona, a group called the Free Earth Movement grew bolder. They saw the GDI as a threat to freedom, claiming it gave too much power to governments and big corporations. One chilly morning, their anger boiled over. Armed members of the group attacked a GDI research facility near Phoenix. The assault was quick and brutal. Guards were overwhelmed, and scientists inside scrambled to escape. By the time authorities arrived, the building was in flames, and several people were dead. Among the victims was Maria Lopez, a brilliant engineer who had been working closely with Dr. Alan Brooks. Her loss hit Alan hard. He had always been quiet and reserved, but now he seemed to retreat even further into himself. Colleagues noticed how he spent longer hours in the lab, barely eating or sleeping. Emily Carter tried to talk to him, urging him to take a break, but he shook his head. "I need to keep going," he said softly. "If I stop, it'll feel like I've given up." The attack sent shockwaves through the GDI. Security measures were tightened, and funding for defensive projects increased. But it also deepened divisions between nations. China and Russia accused the United States of using the alien threat to expand its influence. Diplomatic talks grew heated, and for a while, it seemed like the alliance might fall apart. President Laura Bennett worked tirelessly to keep everyone at the table, reminding them of the bigger picture. "We're stronger together," she told world leaders during an emergency meeting. Her words helped ease tensions, for now. Back in Montana, Jake Miller followed the news closely. He wasn't surprised by the attack. He'd always suspected some groups wouldn't play along. What worried him more was the growing mistrust between ordinary people. In his small town, neighbors who had once shared meals and helped each other out now eyed one another suspiciously. Rumors spread about secret stockpiles and hidden agendas. Jake did his best to stay neutral, but it wasn't easy. Sarah Collins felt the strain too. She attended fewer community meetings, focusing instead on teaching Lily survival skills at home. "What if things get worse?" she asked Jake one evening as they sat by a campfire outside her house. "What if we can't count on anyone else?" Jake didn't have an answer. Instead, he handed her a knife and showed her how to sharpen it. "Stick close to those you trust," he said. "That's all we can do." Despite the setbacks, progress continued. Alan channeled his grief into his work, determined to honor Maria's memory. With Emily's support, he developed a prototype plasma weapon capable of piercing thick metal. Testing it for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. If they could mass-produce these weapons, humanity might stand a chance. Meanwhile, the GDI launched new initiatives to win back public trust. Town hall meetings were held across the globe, inviting everyday citizens to voice their concerns. Experts gave presentations explaining the science behind the preparations, trying to reassure skeptics. Slowly, some of the fear began to fade. But doubts remained. Were they preparing for war when none was needed? Or were they being naive, ignoring the possibility of danger? No one knew for sure. All they could do was keep moving forward, day by day, hoping they were making the right choices. As the third year drew to a close, the sky above Earth remained empty. The aliens hadn't arrived yet, but their shadow loomed large. Humanity was fractured, scared, and uncertain, but it was also resilient. People found ways to adapt, to care for one another, and to hold on to hope. Even in the darkest moments, there were glimmers of light, and that perhaps was the most human thing of all. With 5 years left on the countdown, humanity's efforts shifted into high gear. The world braced itself for what might come, and preparations became more intense than ever before. Massive orbital defense platforms now circled Earth, armed with lasers and missile systems designed to intercept any threat from space. Underground bunkers stretched across continents, ready to house millions if the worst happened. Cities transformed into fortresses, their streets lined with anti-aircraft guns and energy shields glowing faintly in the night. Jake Miller stood atop a hill overlooking his small Montana town, watching as workers installed new defenses around the perimeter. He'd seen the changes up close: barbed wire fences, guard towers, and stockpiles of food hidden in basements. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie. But this wasn't fiction, it was real life. Jake sighed and turned away, heading back to Sarah's house. She and Lily had become a kind of family to him over the past few years, and he didn't take that for granted. Sarah was teaching Lily how to start a fire without matches when Jake arrived. "Look," Lily said proudly, holding up a smoldering bundle of twigs. Jake smiled despite himself. "Good job," he said, ruffling her hair. "You'll be ready for anything." Sarah looked at him, her expression serious. "Do you think we really will need all this?" she asked quietly. Jake hesitated, then shrugged. "I don't know, but it's better to be prepared." Meanwhile, Dr. Emily Carter and Dr. Alan Brooks pushed harder than ever in their labs. Their plasma weapon prototype had passed initial tests, but scaling it up for mass production was proving difficult. Late one evening, Emily stared at a screen filled with data, frustration written all over her face. "We're so close," she muttered. Alan nodded, rubbing his temples. "But close isn't good enough," he replied. They both knew time was running out. The GGI launched another ambitious project, a fleet of advanced spacecraft capable of reaching the alien ships if they came within range. These vessels were equipped with cutting-edge technology reverse-engineered from the alien artifacts discovered earlier. Pilots trained rigorously, preparing for scenarios no one could fully predict. Captain Rachel Meyer, a seasoned astronaut chosen to lead the program, often reminded her team, "We're not just flying machines. We're humanity's first line of defense." Despite the progress, fear lingered in the hearts of many. Economies struggled under the weight of constant preparation. Food shortages hit some regions hard, sparking protests and unrest. Conspiracy theories spread faster than ever, fueled by distrust and desperation. In New York City, crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding answers. "What are you hiding?" one man shouted through a megaphone. Police officers stood guard, tense and alert. Even children weren't immune to the tension. At school, Lily heard whispers about the aliens during recess. Some kids claimed they were monsters with claws and teeth. Others swore they'd seen UFOs in the sky. Lily tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the lessons her mom and Jake taught her. Still, there were nights when she woke up scared, clutching her stuffed bear tightly. Back in Washington, D.C., President Laura Bennett addressed the nation in a televised speech. "We've made incredible strides," she said, standing behind a podium. "But our work is far from over. We must remain united, not just as nations, but as human beings." Her words resonated with some, but critics accused her of glossing over the challenges ahead. As the fourth year ended, the world held its breath. The aliens' arrival was closer now, their massive fleet somewhere beyond the edges of the solar system. Humanity had built weapons, fortified cities, and trained soldiers, but none of it guaranteed safety. People clung to hope, even as fear gnawed at the edges of their minds. In quiet moments, Jake thought about what the future might hold. Would they fight? Would they survive? Or would everything they'd worked for crumble in an instant? He didn't know. All he could do was keep moving forward, one step at a time. 2 years before the aliens were set to arrive, humanity received another message. This time, it wasn't a warning or a countdown. It was an invitation. The transmission included coordinates pointing to a derelict alien ship drifting near Saturn. Scientists debated its meaning, but one thing was clear. This could be their chance to learn more about the beings heading toward Earth. The GDI wasted no time. Within weeks, they assembled a crew and launched the Aurora *, a state-of-the-art spacecraft designed for long-distance missions. Captain Rachel Meyer led the team, her calm demeanor masking the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Among the crew was Dr. Paul Simmons, a biologist eager to study alien life forms. For him, this mission wasn't just about science, it was about understanding. As the Aurora approached the mysterious vessel, the crew grew uneasy. The ship loomed in the darkness, its surface jagged and metallic, like something out of a nightmare. "It's huge," whispered one of the pilots, his voice trembling. Rachel nodded, gripping the controls tightly. "Stay focused," she said. "We're here to gather information, not to panic." Once aboard the alien craft, the team split into groups. Paul and 2 others explored the inner chambers while Rachel monitored their progress from the command center. The air inside was cold and stale, and strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. It felt wrong, unnatural. As they moved deeper, Paul noticed movement, a flicker of shadow darting just out of sight. He froze, heart pounding. "Did you see that?" he asked his teammate, who shook her head nervously. Suddenly, insect-like creatures emerged from the shadows. They were small, with glistening exoskeletons and too many legs. At first, the crew raised their weapons, ready to defend themselves. But the creatures didn't attack. Instead, they scurried past, almost as if they were fleeing something. Paul lowered his weapon, curiosity overtaking fear. "They're not hostile," he said softly. "I think they're scared." The discovery shocked everyone. These aliens weren't invaders. They were survivors, just like humans. Paul collected samples, documenting everything he saw. But the relief was short-lived. As they ventured further, the ship's automated defenses activated without warning. Bright beams of light shot through the corridors, forcing the crew to retreat. One member was hit, collapsing instantly. Chaos erupted as the team scrambled back to the Aurora *, carrying their injured comrade. Back on Earth, news of the mission spread quickly. People watched live broadcasts, holding their breath as the crew narrowly escaped. When the Aurora * returned, scientists swarmed the ship, analyzing every detail. The samples brought back revealed shocking truths. The aliens had been running from something far more dangerous than humanity. Their homeworld had been destroyed by a galactic predator, forcing them to flee across the stars. For Emily Carter and Alan Brooks, the findings added urgency to their work. If these aliens were refugees, then humanity might have misjudged the situation entirely. What if they're coming here for help? Emily asked during a late-night meeting. Alan frowned, deep in thought. Or what if whatever chased them is still out there? He replied. Jake Miller followed the story closely from Montana. He couldn't shake the image of those insect-like creatures. If they're running for their lives, we should let them in, he told Sarah one evening. She hesitated, unsure. But what if they bring trouble with them? What if we can't trust them? The debate raged worldwide. Some argued that humanity had a moral duty to help the aliens, while others believed opening the door could spell disaster. Governments wavered, torn between compassion and caution. Meanwhile, Lily asked her mom, "Will they hurt us?" Sarah hugged her tightly, wishing she had an answer. As the 5th year ended, the world braced itself. The alien fleet was closer now, its arrival inevitable. Humanity had learned much, but not enough to silence its fears. Hope and doubt wrestled in equal measure, leaving everyone wondering, when the ships finally landed, would it be the beginning of peace or the end of everything? The final year arrived, and the world held its breath. The alien fleet had entered the solar system, their massive ships blotting out the stars as they approached Earth. Billions of people watched from their homes, glued to screens broadcasting live footage of the skies. Some prayed, others cried. No one knew what would happen next. Jake Miller stood outside his cabin, staring up at the darkened horizon. He felt a strange mix of fear and awe. For years, he'd imagined this moment, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality. The ships were enormous, far bigger than anything humanity had built. They moved slowly, almost gracefully, casting long shadows over the land below. Jake turned to Sarah, who stood beside him with Lily clinging to her leg. "It's happening," he said quietly. She nodded, her face pale but determined. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Bennett addressed the planet one last time. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the podium. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter," she said. "We've spent 10 years preparing for this moment, not just with weapons and defenses, but with hope and courage. Whatever happens next, we face it together." Her words resonated deeply, offering comfort to millions. Dr. Emily Carter and Dr. Alan Brooks worked tirelessly in the hours leading up to the landing. Their plasma weapons were ready, and orbital defense platforms stood on high alert. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. What if the aliens didn't come as enemies? What if they needed help? She voiced her concerns during a final briefing, urging caution before jumping to conclusions. "Let's not make assumptions," she said firmly. "We owe them, and ourselves, a chance to understand." When the ships finally descended, they did so peacefully. They hovered above major cities, their presence both majestic and unnerving. Then communication came, not through signals this time, but through images and sounds broadcast directly into human minds. People saw visions of destruction, planets consumed by fire, civilizations wiped out. And then they saw survivors, aliens like those encountered near Saturn, fleeing for their lives. The message was clear. These beings weren't invaders. They were refugees. Their homeworld had been destroyed by a galactic superpredator, forcing them to seek sanctuary elsewhere. Now they ask humanity for refuge in return, promising to share advanced technology and knowledge in exchange for safety. Reactions were mixed. Some embraced the idea, seeing it as an opportunity to unite two species and build a better future. Others remained skeptical, fearing hidden motives or unforeseen consequences. Debates raged in governments and communities alike. Jake listened to the arguments around him, torn between his instincts and his hopes. "They're scared, just like us," he told Sarah. "Maybe giving them a chance is the right thing to do." Ultimately, President Bennett made the call. In a historic speech, she announced that humanity would welcome the aliens, but under strict conditions. Refugees would be housed in designated areas, monitored closely, and integrated gradually into society. "This isn't just about survival," she said. "It's about trust. Let's show them, and ourselves, that we can rise above our fears." As the aliens began settling into their new home, life on Earth changed once again. Jake and Sarah continued training, now focusing on how to coexist rather than fight. Emily and Alan collaborated with alien scientists, learning secrets that promised to revolutionize medicine, energy, and space travel. Even Lily seemed hopeful, drawing pictures of humans and aliens working side by side. Challenges remained, of course. Not everyone trusted the newcomers, and tensions occasionally flared. But amid the uncertainty, there were moments of connection, small acts of kindness that reminded everyone what truly mattered. Humanity had faced its greatest test yet, and while the road ahead was uncertain, one truth was undeniable. Together, they had chosen hope over fear. The first year after the aliens' arrival was a delicate balancing act. Humanity and the refugees worked side by side, but trust didn't come easily. The aliens, tall, insect-like beings with shimmering exoskeletons, spoke through gestures and shared images rather than words. At first, misunderstandings were common. A gesture meant to show gratitude was misinterpreted as aggression in one tense standoff. But over time, people began to learn each other's ways. Jake Miller watched it all unfold from his small Montana town. He wasn't directly involved in the integration efforts, but he saw the changes ripple through his community. Sarah volunteered at a local center where humans and aliens exchanged knowledge. She taught them basic English phrases, while they showed her how to use their advanced tools for farming and construction. Lily loved visiting the center, fascinated by the aliens' glowing bodies and quiet movements. "They're not scary," she told Jake one evening. "They just want to live, like us." Dr. Emily Carter spent most of her days collaborating with alien scientists in high-tech labs. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever seen, and they freely shared their secrets. Together, Emily and her team developed cures for diseases that had plagued Earth for centuries. They also created sustainable energy sources that could power entire cities without harming the planet. For Emily, these breakthroughs felt like redemption, a way to prove that cooperation was worth the risk. Alan Brooks struggled more with the adjustment. He still carried the weight of Maria's death and found it hard to trust the newcomers. But even he couldn't deny the benefits of their partnership. One day, an alien scientist handed him a device capable of repairing damaged ecosystems. Alan stared at it, tears welling up in his eyes. "This could have saved so much," he whispered. From that moment on, his resistance softened, replaced by cautious optimism. Not everyone embraced the changes. Resistance groups continued to protest, claiming the aliens posed a hidden threat. Some governments pushed back against the GDI's policies, arguing that humanity was giving too much away. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over at any moment. Jake kept a close eye on the news, ready to act if things turned violent again. "We can't let fear win," he told Sarah during one heated discussion. "If we do, then what was all this for?" Despite the challenges, there were moments of beauty. In New York City, humans and aliens worked together to rebuild neighborhoods destroyed by years of preparation. Schools opened their doors to both species, teaching children to see past differences and focus on shared goals. Even President Laura Bennett marveled at the progress during a global address. "We've shown the universe what we're capable of," she said, "not just as individuals, but as a united force." As months passed, the initial fear faded into curiosity and eventually acceptance. People realized the aliens weren't so different from themselves. They laughed, mourned, and dreamed just like humans did. Slowly, friendships formed. Neighbors invited alien families to dinner, sharing meals and stories. Children played together, oblivious to the barriers that once seemed insurmountable. One evening, Jake joined Sarah and Lily for dinner at their home. The table was set with food grown using alien techniques, bright vegetables, and grains no one had seen before. As they ate, Lily held up a drawing she'd made earlier that day. It showed humans and aliens standing hand in hand under a starry sky. "This is our future," she said proudly. Jake smiled, feeling the warmth he hadn't known in years. The journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges, disagreements, and doubts. But humanity had proven something vital. When faced with the unknown, they could choose unity over division, hope over fear. The countdown had ended, not with destruction, but with the dawn of a new era. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, one thing was clear: together, they could face whatever came next.